Hi, I'm Leah Marovich, news editor at Rapaport, and welcome to the fourth episode of Rapaport's new LinkedIn Live series, Gem Talks, in which we speak with experts in the diamond industry about important topics affecting the sector. This episode of the Rapaport LinkedIn Live is brought to you by GIA, the Gemological Institute of America, protecting consumers and supporting the global gem and jewelry trade since 1931 through research, education, and laboratory services. Our guests today are Tom Moses, Executive Vice President and Chief Laboratory and Research Officer of GIA, and a member of the GIA Board of Governors. Tom earned his GIA Graduate Gemologist Diploma in 1976 and began work at the GIA Laboratory in Santa Monica in 1977. In 1986, he joined the New York Laboratory to understudy Robert Crowningshield, one of the world's most revered gemologists, and follow in his footsteps. Tom has been instrumental in furthering the Institute's gem identification and research and has headed many critical projects at GIA and co-authored prominent articles for its quarterly journal, Gems in Gemology. Dr. Wuyi Wang is Vice President of Research and Development at GIA, managing a range of R&D activities, including diamonds, colored stones, pearls, instrument development, and metrology. His primary research focus on diamond geology, spectroscopy of lattice defects, analysis of lattice defects, diamond treatment and lab grown, and instrument development. Dr. Wang has published many articles in academic journals. He holds a bachelor's degree in geology from the Peking University in China and a PhD in geology from the University of Tsukuba, Japan. Dr. Wang has been working at GIA since 2000. Today, we'll be discussing the evolution of lab-grown diamonds, how they got their start, the development of their nomenclature, public acceptance, and the resultant impact on natural diamonds, and how the GIA's years of research have enabled them to confidently distinguish between the two. Later in the session, we'll be taking questions from the audience, so please post any questions you have in the video chat, and we'll try to address them during the live. Welcome, Tom, Dr. Wang. It's a pleasure to have you both here.
Thank you, Leah, and we're happy to be here. Thank you for hosting.
And just a quick shout out to everybody watching. Thank you for sticking with us. We're sorry we had some technical difficulties. Tom, can you give us some history of the development of laboratory-grown diamonds?
Sure, thank you, Leah. And also I want to apologize for the delay. I'm not sure if many of you are aware, but we and I are sitting together at our facility in New Jersey, and before we knew it, there were fire trucks all over the premises, and we were escorted out of the building. But fortunately, it was just something minor, and we're back, so we apologize. So yes, Leah. So the history. So there was a fascination with diamond and synthesizing diamond for more than 100 years, actually. So the first work, it was the exploration of trying to grow diamond in a gas was in Europe in the early 1900s. And that process was using acetylene and mercury vapor, and the temperatures they were working around was 1,000 degrees. And it wasn't successful, but there were many people trying. And then the next, I would say, step in the strategy to synthesize diamond was in the 1940s. And there were rumors then that the German workers had grown diamond also using a similar approach with an acetylene torch, but was never fully confirmed. So, of course, you're most familiar with the 1950s and when the first true discoveries took place. And that's often attributed to General Electric in the United States in 1954 using high pressure, high temperature. But in fact, it did occur in the United States, but it was with Union Carbide. And it was done actually not HPHT, but CVD. And not CVD as we know it today. It was not single crystal, but a compact multi-crystal growth. And things advanced very, very quickly in the flurry of the 1950s. Of course, a couple of years later, it was General Electric in 1954 who developed synthesis using HPHT and advanced their patents then. And there was a Swedish group also that was working at a similar time that also using HPHT synthesized diamond. That group was then purchased by Element 6 of De Beers. So not at that point, none of these were laboratory grown or man-made diamonds in appearance that we think of today. These were low quality, often very small, and not really even facettable. But the barrier had been breached. So it wasn't until another roughly 20 years that General Electric presented to GIA in 1971 gem quality synthetic diamonds. And I'll just, I know we're going to talk about nomenclature later, but GIA was in communication with General Electric in January, so a month after their announcement in January 1955. And they sent us much of their marketing material, and General Electric used the term man-made to describe the products that they are producing. So you can, again, kind of see, I know we'll talk about the evolution of the nomenclature later, but that was kind of a key a step in the evolution of the terminology. So from 1971, the next step we started to see, and we were aware, certainly following that work was going on in Japan and in Russia, mainly, where most of the work was also being done with the high pressure, high temperature. And GI published in the mid-1980s work about Sumitomo's development from Japan and also some of the Russian-grown synthetic diamonds. And then really kind of the next step that we saw in this evolution was the 1990s, and really now started to see a lot of attention being drawn to CVD again. So it remained much less interesting to researchers until the mid-1990s, and that then escalated. And I would say from about 2000 on to where we are today, the progress was astronomical. So we talked about history from 70 or 80 years and how long it took to get to be able to grow small gem quality diamonds. And in the next 20 years that we've experienced, we now, of course, see laboratory grown diamonds in all colors, all qualities, and in virtually all sizes. So that's, Leah, is kind of the background on kind of the evolution of the production of laboratory grown diamonds. And I think we use going to talk more about it.
Great. So actually, that's very interesting. I didn't even know that GE was involved in that at all. So you've given me a bit of an education. Dr. Wang, could you talk about what are some of the key differences that the GIA uses to separate natural diamonds from lab grown, and what treatments are applied and how the GIA can detect them?
Sure, thank you, Nia. Obviously, there's a dramatic difference between natural diamond and laboratory grown diamonds. Before I answer the specific questions, if you don't mind, can I share a few slides, just review kind of the laboratory grown diamond, the kind of history of and the product. If you don't mind, I'll share a few slides.
Absolutely, we'd love to see it.
Okay, give me a second. I'll share the.
Okay, it looks like something's coming up now.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Okay, good. So I would like to give a very brief, just a few slides to give a review and the outlook of laboratory grown diamonds for jewelry industry. As we all know, there are two main growth method technologies for gem quality diamond. One is a HPHT technology, that's a high pressure and high temperature technologies, mimicking the process natural gem diamonds were produced in the Earth's mantle, to use a press to generate a very high pressure and to use a heat to generate a very high temperature to grow gem quality diamonds. And then another technology is a CVD technology, the chemical vapor deposition. It actually is a very simple technology, use gas as the source of a carbon, meaning the is a missing gas, and then to use a microwave to heat the gas, generate a plasma, and then the carbon is going to drop on a diamond seed to grow as a diamond. It's pretty much similar to our kitchen with gas and with microwave stoves. Most of gem diamonds in the trade, in our jewelry trade, at this moment are probably produced by CVD technology, but there's a decent amount of gem diamonds produced by HPHT technology. These two technologies, as Tom just described, have been going side by side for decades. This slide shows the early days of the product, what it looked like. And the left image is the yellow HPHT lab-grown diamonds with a lot of nitrogen that gives the yellow color. That's the early days in the 70s, 80s, 1970s, 80s, produced by GE and then produced by Sumitomo, and also the Russian technology is a Boros price. And the right image are the very early CVD diamonds we tested in GIA, and that's around 2003. And the stones then was a small and with very decent amount of brown color. But obviously the technology improved a lot and the product quality improved quite a lot in last 2 decades. Here I'm going to talk very briefly about the principles of HPHT diamond growth. The left diagram basically is a phase diagram of a carbon. It's a temperature plot against pressure. At a high temperature and a lower pressure, carbon exists as a graphite. So graphite is a stable phase, a stable mineral at a high temperature and lower pressure. But when the pressure goes up and the temperature goes up in this area, the carbon will stay as diamond. Diamond will be a stable phase at this pressure and temperature conditions. Natural diamond, this is gem quality natural diamonds. Most of them are formed at about a 5 GPa and 1200 degrees C. That's where the natural diamond formed in the Earth's mantle. But for HPHT lab grown, the pressure and is a blue area, indicates pressure and temperature condition. Slightly high pressure and a slightly high temperature. Basically, it is mimicking the natural conditions to grow diamond. As you see here, we marked the yellow area is a CVD diamond growth condition, about 1000 degrees C minus plus 200 degree, but the pressure is close to 0. So very almost in vacuum to grow CVD diamond, but HPHT is mimicking natural conditions. In the right-hand side is a diagram show the assembly, the cell, how a HPHT diamond is actually produced. To grow diamond, obviously, we need carbon. So in this diagram here, the middle part of the black area is the carbon. Obviously, this assembly is under high pressure and electricity runs through this heater. The red area is a heater to make the center material at a very high pressure and temperature. At that condition, the graphite here is going to dissolve to this metal. The metal at this temperature will be liquid. Carbon dissolves easily to this liquid ion we call catalyst, dissolve it in. It's very important to keep the point here, temperature 1, and here, the diamond seed, a temperature gradient. So temperature at the center here, the T1, is about 30 degrees higher than the seed. So that is a very important technology to make sure carbon dissolves more to the liquid at a high temperature. When it circulates to the lower temperature area, carbon got oversaturated in this liquid metal, and oversaturated carbon would deposit easily on this diamond seed as a single crystal. So this is basically the principle invented by GE in 1950s, 54. Now, obviously, technology has been greatly improved now. Instead of growing one large crystal, multiple crystals can be produced simultaneously at a high pressure and high temperature. For CVD technology, and it is basically at the vacuum condition, methane gas is introduced, but dominated by hydrogen gas. It's only about 1% of the gas introduced to the vacuum is the methane. Methane is the CH4, the formula, and with the carbon as a source through a diamond. Microwave is used to heat the gas to a very, very high temperature that generates a plasma. Here you see here's a plasma ball. In the plasma, the temperature is so high that it's going to ionize most of the molecules. The methane will be ionized and the hydrogen gas will be ionized. So some carbon, ionized carbon could deposit over the diamond seed here. We show the lattice here, layer by layer, to grow as a diamond. Even at such a low pressure, it is still deposited over the lattice as a diamond. It is an amazing technology. We can grow diamond in the graphite stable area. That's amazing technology. And obviously similar to HPHT method, multiple crystals could be produced simultaneously with the CVD technology with the speed about 2 to 50 microns per hour. So we can easily calculate, take in a couple of weeks to grow a decent size of gem diamond. Again, instead of one crystal, they can grow up to a few dozens of crystals simultaneously. I will talk very briefly about HPHT treatment of CVD diamond. For the commercial growth, it's a balance of quantity and speed. Many CVD diamonds are produced at a reasonably fast speed, but the CVD diamonds could have decent amount of a brown color. It is needed to remove the brown color by HPHT treatment. A few conditions are summarized here. As what we pointed out previously, HPHT directly grow diamond at a high pressure, high temperature HPHT condition. The pressure is about a 5 to 6 GPa, temperature is 1300 to 1600 degrees C. So this is a growth of diamond, and the CVD grows at a much lower pressure and lower temperature we mentioned. When we treat a CVD grown diamond with a brown color, the pressure is about a 4 to 7 GPa. We still need to press something like this to generate the pressure to avoid the CVD diamond get graphitized at a temperature from 1700 to 12 to 21 degrees C. This is a very, very high temperature. So we need a pressure to avoid the graphitization of CVD diamond. That is similar to the treatment of a natural brown diamonds at a high pressure and a high temperature to remove the natural diamond with a brown color. Here's an example we tested in as early as 2003. This is a single crystal CVD diamond we cut into two pieces. The left side brown color keep as a reference, and the right side is after HPHT treatment. Color appearance has been dramatically improved, but if you pay a little bit of attention, it still has a little bit of kind of grayish color after HPHT treatment. So again, just what we mentioned, as grown CVD diamond could has a decent amount of brown color, and HPHT treatment could remove the brown color, turn them to colorless or near colorless. In the trade, in GIA, we tested most of the CVD diamond we test in GI labs are HPHT treated, about 80%. But there are technologies that can grow CVD diamond colorless or near colorless, and no post-growth treatment are needed. So about 20% in our lab we tested as grown CVD diamond. HPHT treatment, no, in most cases, I would say they can turn CVD diamond to good colorless, near colorless, but some will still have a grayish color that cannot be entirely removed. In extreme case, we could see HPHT treated CVD diamond with a fancy greenish or gray color into the fancy gray range. The CVD technology can also be applied to natural diamond seed. Here's a kind of extreme, very dramatic case. Is a layer of a blue CVD diamond. Is only about 80 micron thickness, doped with a boron. It's similar to natural type 2B diamond. It's doped with a boron, overgrow over the table of a natural 1A diamond as a seed. It turned its stone to fancy blue color. So this kind of overgrowth of CVD over natural diamond seed create a challenge for diamond identification in gem labs. Obviously, they can grow a layer of a colorless diamond over a colorless natural diamond seed, and they can also grow a layer of a colored CVD diamond over colorless ones. That make a diamond screening, diamond identification very challenging in gem laboratory. The last slide I want to show here is, in addition to HPHT and CVD growth of gem quantity diamond, there's another technology still using HPHT method, but it is a directly convert graphite to gem quantity diamond. It's called a nanopolyricrystalline diamond. It is not a single crystal, it's a nanocrystal size diamond, but very, very closely packed together, and it's transparent. Some of them show even very nice yellow color. It exists, and it's an amazing technology, generate a new material for many other industrial applications. It could be used as gemstone, but we haven't seen much in the jewelry industry. So I just want to use these a few slides to show you kind of the review of the laboratory grown gem diamonds and the related treatment. One thing I didn't mention is that many lab-grown diamonds could be artificially irradiated and annealed. That would be able to generate a series of fancy colors from blue, green to pink, red that you have seen in the industry. Many of these stones, when you see a lab-grown diamonds with this type of a color, they are artificially irradiated with or without annealing after the irradiation. So yeah, that's kind of, I give a brief review of the laboratory grown diamonds for the jewelry industry.
Great, thank you, Dr. Wang. And actually, we have a couple questions from our audience on what you just spoke about. The first is this why CVD tend to reflect gray shaded fire as opposed to bright white or colored reflections?
Tom, do you want to answer that question?
Sure. Thank you, Leah. Yes, what happens when we describe that effect, there's kind of a scattering of light that happens in the diamond. So they tend to look also using kind of a common term, kind of sleepier or milkier, less fire or less brilliance to them. So it is a fairly common characteristic of CVD grown diamonds, especially that have been annealed. So it's not unusual to see it, although I think we see less of it today as the technology has improved.
Great, thank you. And another question. Based on the two technologies, although we can achieve uniform growth, it would appear that the growth patterns for both would be different. CVD would appear to be layered and a flat tabular structure. Would HPHT be cubic and octahedral in shape?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, great. And Tom, I'm curious, are untreated lab-grown diamonds more valuable than treated natural, or are treated natural still more valuable?
It's a good question, Leah. And of course, GIA is not involved in buying or selling, but let me answer it this way. So, as you may or may not know, we have also here at GIA, just a floor below where we and I are sitting. We're growing CVD synthetic diamond right now. So we've been doing it for many years and also doing treatment. So when one thinks about how this is produced, and we just talked about it in this microwave reactor and the gas nutrients that are supplying the carbon. So what we have done, and I'm sure others have done, is if during that growth process, as an example, if one turns off the gas nutrients that are supplying the carbon and creates a more of an inert state, but leaves the temperature elevated. So they never really left the growth vessel. Growth is stopped, but the color can be improved. That's an example. And I would use another example, as we know, with man-made or laboratory-grown ruby. The most common method of growth is through a Czochralski or pulled method. And they grow rather large crystals, but they have to be annealed before the stones are cut and polished. And it relieves the stress in the crystals and allows them to be faceted without fracturing. So as we had described, at least, or the vast majority of CVD produced diamond is annealed. So in our view, it's really very much part of the process of the growing and manufacturing the product. So it's a wholly manufactured product. So now to answer your question about natural diamond, it starts out with typically a rare type of type 2 natural diamond in many cases, and is decolorized. So the fact that the starting material is rare, unlike the laboratory grown material, it clearly would seem that the natural diamond that's been subjected to the same treatment process certainly should have a higher value just by its natural rarity.
Great. And actually, on the same topic of treatment, somebody is asking, with the CVDs that have been treated by color, does the color fade, especially for HPHTs?
What do you mean to be fade then?
I assume they're asking if the color is not as bright over time. Like it tends to wash out over time?
If I may answer that question, I don't think so. With the conventional treatment technology that are including HPHT annealing of CVD diamonds, and also irradiation, and then with or without annealing after irradiation, this technology to treat CVD diamonds in the trade or even from scientific viewpoint, this color change, the final color would be considered a permanent, either pink or blue color with a common manufacturer in the jewelry industry, the color would not change. But I'm not saying that color will not be absolutely stable. For example, if we expose a pink treated lab-grown diamonds to very strong UV light, the color would change with more brownish color, but that's a similar feature even for natural pink diamond. The color eventually will be restored at the normal illumination environment like a day-night. So I don't think that's the case. And in the industry, we would consider the final color of the treatment is permanent.
Okay, great. And Dr. Wang, what advancements in technology have contributed to the growth and quality improvement of lab-grown diamonds?
Well, it's a good question. I think for both CVD and HPHT technology in last a few decades, the main progress is they learned how to control the producing of defects, and that is defects during the diamond growth, and also the capture impurities becoming inclusion. For example, in HPHT growth, they really need to try to control the concentration of a nitrogen get captured into the lattice. In CVD growth, they need to control the long diamond growth at the surface. So I think first they need to improve the growth, the science of growth and technology. Another area I think is a big improvement is they can have the hardware, the device that can produce stable pressure and a temperature in particular over a large area. Temperature gradient is a huge issue to overcome if for mass production. They need a large area with uniform pressure and uniform temperature over a large area so they can produce a lot of German quantity diamonds simultaneously. So I think there's a huge improvement in last a couple of decades in both CVD technology and HPHT technology. They can produce this large and uniform controllable pressure and temperature environment.
Thank you. And while I have you, somebody is asking here now, today, HPHT is also giving blue fluorescence, and people have even reported a 415 nanometer peak. How can you identify these cases?
Okay, if I may answer this question, as previously you mentioned the question from a client that HPHT lab-grown diamonds always show the cubic octahedron crystal shape. That's because during the HPHT diamond growth, they always has octahedron growth sector and a cubic growth sector. This crystal habit is dramatically different from most natural gem quantity diamonds. This feature is going to continue, it's not going to disappear. So there's a dramatic difference from the very beginning. It doesn't matter after the growth, post-growth treatment to change the fluorescence to blue or introduce the 415 peak that is come from a defect called N3 defects in diamond. That obviously very common defects in natural diamond. It makes them some features similar to natural diamonds, but their growth habit is not going to change. And there are also other lattice defects they cannot either remove or cannot add in. So my point is there are always very clear difference between a HPHT lab-grown diamond from natural diamond. It doesn't matter a few other features are similar to each other. There are always reliable features for GemLab or for us to separate an HPHT lab-grown diamond with some post-growth treatment from natural diamond. Separation of lab-grown diamonds from natural stones has never been an issue.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Wang. And Tom, I know I've heard them called synthetics, lab-grown, man-made, man-created, but how has the nomenclature describing these diamonds evolved over time?
Yes, thanks, Leah. And I'll maybe start before laboratory-grown diamonds or synthetic diamonds. So the first reported use of or development of synthesizing gemstones were really a lot of work was done by the French in the 1800s, and a leader there was Edmond Fremy, a well-known chemist who had done a lot of work in different areas. But towards the end of his career, he synthesized ruby and actually wrote a book. I don't remember the exact title, but it was in French that said essentially synthetic ruby. And so that really started, that was where the origin of that word came from in describing gem materials that had been grown in a laboratory that reproduced the properties of its natural counterpart. So, and that really existed prior to any of the gem labs that we know today. Certainly GIA didn't come around until 40 years later. So, of course, it was nomenclature that GIA accepted and used. And it was in the 1940s, there was the 1940s, 1950s, I think, certainly in the US, prompted by some of the work that Carol Chatham was doing with other materials other than diamond, there became a desire to have what some thought were more friendly terms. Cultured was, of course, one of the terms that was proposed and has been proposed a number of times. And as that throughout the 60s and 70s, there were other terms. So, and became accepted, at least in the United States, by the Federal Trade Commission. So maker created. So the name of the maker created could be an acceptable term. And I mentioned earlier when we were talking about the history, General Electric coined the term man-made, which the Federal Trade Commission in the US also accepted as the term. So the current terminology in the United States and adopted by organizations like CIBJO include still synthetic, laboratory grown, man-made, or maker created. Anything other than that must be led with one of those terms. So that's the status today. But I think we're also seeing other developments. I think more recently the French are opposed to the use of laboratory grown, and they require the use of synthetic. And I believe the Germans have done the same. Now, in some ways, with the long history of the use of synthetic in France, it somewhat makes sense. But I think the more important thing from a practical standpoint, all of these gem materials over now well over 100 years that have been created in a laboratory that are man-made have been very successful. And I think we've, over this long period of time, over many decades, there have been many debates about the nomenclature used. But the fact is the materials themselves have been accepted and used throughout the globally. And they are used in far greater quantities than natural gem materials. So I think the story of the nomenclature is interesting, but the products themselves have succeeded regardless of what the nomenclature has been. I think the important thing, as it was decades ago today, is a clear description to the consumer. So the consumer understands the difference. As Wuyi has pointed out, there are distinct differences, and it's very important that a consumer understands those differences and then can make the decision that best suits their needs.
Okay, thanks. And speaking about the product succeeding, have you been surprised, Tom, by the acceptance of laboratory-grown diamonds, both from the general public and to a good extent by the trade as well?
I haven't been. One, they're very attractive. So I think that's often, in gemstones, beauty is really the attribute that draws people to them. But I think that even before the market accelerated as it has, again, just looking historically at the acceptance of other man-made or laboratory-grown gem materials, virtually all of them have been very successful. So again, whether it's been ruby or sapphire or emerald, alexandrite, they all have found a significant use in the industry, and obviously consumers like them. And I think it comes back to the point that they are attractive and affordable.
And so that acceptance, what impact do you think that it's had on natural diamonds?
So I think, Leah, I think back to, I'm going to use synthetic ruby again as an example. So when we look at period jewelry from 100 years ago, Art Deco in particular, and small rubies, occasionally we still test and see those man-made rubies mixed in beautiful with natural rubies. And during that period, the identification was much more challenging. And so it created, in these cases, we believe when we look at the mountings, we know they haven't been altered. So that synthetic ruby was in place from the beginning. So with every new introduction of a man-made replica gem material, there is a period of uncertainty, confusion. People aren't exactly sure which stones are which, and there's a lot of perhaps comments made about perhaps them being particularly superior to the natural counterpart. But in a relatively short period of time, once the identification criteria is in place and people can readily separate them and also describe the differences accurately, they seem to take on kind of a parallel markets. And I think we're starting to see that with laboratory grown diamonds.
Okay, this one is for both of you or either of you. Do you think that this popularity will continue, or do you think that the bubble will eventually burst due to the falling prices?
Tom, go ahead.
So I'll start again. Certainly, we nor I are experts in the marketing and what will happen at the retail counter. But again, it certainly appears that the falling prices will help create this separation so that they will natural and laboratory grown diamonds will find their own way in two different markets. But I think in some ways the falling price, the lower price of laboratory grown diamonds will allow for a lot more innovation in our industry. So the real success will be to use laboratory grown diamonds in ways that would be very difficult to use natural diamonds, either because of supply side or rarity, or the cost of the raw material is just too expensive to experiment with. And now that laboratory grown diamonds have fallen significantly, probably will fall even a bit more. It allows for, I think, new opportunities. To me, that's the exciting part about laboratory grown diamonds. So obviously, there probably will be some people who will choose to substitute or choose laboratory grown diamond instead of purchasing a natural diamond. But again, I think the more exciting opportunities are creating new opportunities. So imagine where you could have your name in letters lasered out of laboratory grown diamond and have the initials on your favorite whatever on earrings or necklaces or rings, and things again that would be virtually impossible to do with natural diamond. So I actually think it's an exciting opportunity to do new things, and I think that's where the industry and the consumer both will win.
Great. And Wuyi, did you have anything to add?
I agree with what Tom said. It's lab-grown diamonds are really beautiful, but it has its entirely different market from natural diamonds. It might have a impact to natural diamonds for short term, but in long term, I think they're entirely different markets.
Okay, and I'm wondering, do you think that the bigger reason for the popularity of lab grown with consumers is the lower cost, or the belief that they're more environmentally friendly and can be more easily traced to their source?
So I'll try again for that to start with, Leah. Probably some of both, but the fact that we actually have some idea how much power it takes to produce laboratory grown diamonds, I suspect some of the claims that have been made about the environmentally friendliness of laboratory grown diamonds may not be well substantiated. And I do think that organizations like, JVC in the US or FTC will at some point require stricter requirements for those making claims such as that. We are also aware, though, that many of the, certainly the producers of CBD in India are using a lot of solar power to supplement the growth or to support the growth of their stones. And of course I believe the Lightbox factory in the US, a lot of water power is used there. So I think again, as time goes on, those producing laboratory grown diamonds will find more efficient ways to grow them and using things like solar power. But I also believe that the claims will not be made as loosely perhaps as they have been in the past. And where consumers perhaps believed all of that in the future, I think there will probably be, it will require some support for those claims in the future.
Okay, so you've basically touched on my next question, which is, do you think lab-grown diamonds are more environmentally friendly? And it sounds like you're saying not necessarily, but do you think that they're on the same level, or do you think maybe one is more environmentally friendly than the other? Or is it hard to know for sure?
Yeah, again, I'm not an expert and maybe we will comment, but I think it depends on some mines are the recovery process is more environmentally friendly than others. And we just talked about some producers of man-made diamonds produce more efficiently than others. I would just add though, or segue, it would seem like when this discussion is happening with consumers, it's more, I think the decision should include more than the environmental concerns, but there's the social impact of both products is really important to do, and I think it applies to not only with laboratory grown diamonds, but other gem materials. What are the benefits to those who the producing countries or those in the supply chain that are either recovering or cutting or polishing? And it seems to me that there is much more attention being paid today to that traceability, sustainability, and that best practices are being followed. So I think the environmental question itself, I think will have to be cleaned up so that there are facts about both, whether it's natural or laboratory grown. But more importantly, I think it's best that the consumer knows the whole story before making a decision.
It's very interesting, actually. So now we have a bunch more questions from our audience. So let's delve into some of those. Someone is asking, we have seen a client's CVD clear diamond with a slight increase in milkiness over time. What would cause that?
If I may answer this question, I personally am not familiar with this feature. Basically, you are indicating the CVD diamond at the beginning. It is transparent. The transparency is better, and with the time, it developed some milky appearance. I'm not familiar with this feature. Obviously, I don't know how to answer this question. It is a really, really unusual feature. If the client is willing to contact with me or Tom in GIA, would be happy to study this feature. We are not familiar with this.
Okay, thanks. Next question. Does the GIA intend to disclose treatment annealing of CVD on their grading report?
Tom?
So we had been doing the disclosure of the HPHT annealing, but we have not routinely recently. We do it upon request though, if somebody wants to know, and you can kind of correct me if we're doing something other than that right now.
It is right. We still have our standard service. We will detect the treatment and disclose in our report. And also we have other type of report for lab-grown diamonds that we don't have to disclose the post-growth treatment if there's any. I would like to point one thing for the industry for us to to keep this in mind. Laboratory-grown diamonds is created in the laboratory, all the pressure, temperature, controllable environment. Sometimes it's very difficult to define what a process is a treatment, what a process is not. For example, to grow a CVD diamond at a, let's say, slightly high temperature, in particular for HPHT lab-grown, to grow at a higher temperature, then that will generate some features similar to post-growth treatment. And also, that's a CVD diamond after growth. If we keep the CVD diamond in the semi-reactor, just increase the temperature to anneal it for a little period of time, would that consider a treatment? So there are some gray area for lab-grown diamonds, how to define a diamond is treated or not treated.
Okay, thank you. Someone else is asking here, what are the concerns surrounding the identification of lab-grown melee, and how can they be accurately identified?
Technically, it's absolutely possible to very accurately separate lab-grown melee diamonds from natural diamonds. The matter is how much effort we're going to put onto it, considering the value of each stone. Most of them probably, that's at one point, the price is probably going to drop to a few dollars per stone, how much effort we're going to put on it. GI offers a very reliable auto-screening service to separate lab-grown melee diamonds from natural diamonds based on very accurate method. So I would say it is important to pay enough attention to the details, because natural diamond is a very complicated process. Everything happens in the laboratory could happen in nature. We just need to pay enough attention to separate them. It is absolutely possible to have a very accurate service to separate the natural from lab-grown melee diamonds.
Okay, great. And does the advancement in technology mean we'll be seeing a wider variety of colored diamonds on the market?
I think as we described earlier with some of the slides, that essentially all the colors that one has seen in natural diamond can be produced artificially. Virtually all of those colors can be produced artificially with laboratory-grown diamonds. In fact, I think we and I were talking early this morning. We published something, well, maybe more than 30 years ago, or nearly more than 30 years ago, about laboratory-grown diamonds that had been treated to red color. So we've been really familiar for some time of the capabilities of what can be done, and I think we described much of those through the slides. So as I was saying earlier, I think these are some of the exciting things that can be done. So imagine some of the rare, very rare natural colors that would be unobtainable and in some cases never seen by somebody as a consumer today. Now we'll have access to these products. So I think that's an exciting opportunity for retailers and consumers.
Okay, someone else is asking, what is the perfect UV source wavelength to identify all defects in diamonds, lab-grown diamonds?
I don't think there is a one or a couple of UV light source to excite diamonds to see their emissions, either visually or by instrument, that can separate all lab-grown diamonds from natural diamonds. I don't think that's possible to separate all of them. It can separate most of them, by the way.
Okay. And someone else is asking here, they say it's pleasing to see that the GIA have put a lot of effort and resource into developing detection capabilities for lab-grown diamonds and lab-grown that have been color enhanced. In relation to certification of lab-grown diamonds, how does GIA compare with IGI, especially in cost terms, for the certification reports?
Tom, please.
Yeah, sure. I honestly am not aware of the prices that the other organizations offer for that service. Yeah, so I'm afraid I'm not able to answer that. As I said, we have been issuing reports on laboratory grown diamonds for at least 15 years, although I recall seeing laboratory grown diamonds submitted to GIA more than 30 years ago. So it's a service we've been offering for a long time. Our fees are posted on our website, but I'm not aware of what other organizations' fee schedules are.
Okay. And I think we have basically reached our time for today, and I think we've answered most of the questions the audience have. If either of you has time to look back and see if there are any questions that have been posted that we haven't answered and you have time to answer them, that would be great. But thank you both for sharing such interesting information with us. I think it was a great education on how lab-grown diamonds came onto the scene, how they differ from natural diamonds, and how the GIA is able to spot the differences between them. And thanks to everyone for watching and for submitting your questions. This episode of Gem Talks is brought to you by the GIA, and don't forget to follow Rapaport on LinkedIn. Have a great day or evening.
Thank you.